This is a great big elbow hole. It's a lamb's wool jumper, I think. Lamb's wool Angora by the feel of it. And it started to unravel, which really if we caught earlier wouldn't be such a problem. And now we've got a fairly big space to mend. Lots of people darn. I don't. I'll think up some alternative method for this and I'll show you. The first thing we have to do is stop these little stitches from running. So we'll just catch them. Now we're going to cover this with something else, so we don't have to worry too much about the colour. I have some pale grey here, so I'll just catch the stitches, secure them down, and then move through the knitwear so that the threads don't dangle at the back, and catch them again. So I'm going to go around and do that, stop these little loops from running, top and bottom, and then we'll do the next stage. I've got an old t-shirt, it's beyond repair, so I've cut a nice little piece off it and ironed it to make it flat. When you're cutting knitwear jersey, please try and cut along the lines because it'll stop it from getting squint when you're using it. Knitwear, that's this knitwear, or fine t-shirts, all the same. It's got three-way stretch, so when three-way stretch means it stretches in any direction, and woven cloth doesn't. And that's why I'm going to use these two together. This is a single jersey, and you can see it's got a purl on the back and a plain on the front. I'm going to use this piece, tuck it behind. Next, I'm just going to tack it into place. So I'm just going to take that piece of thread I had before and just start tacking all around. There we are. This is just so that it lies flat while we work it. So I'll finish and show you the end. Each mend will be a different shape. Now this is reminding me of a diagonal. If we have a look at the stripes, 1, 2, 3, 4, this one finishes just on the outside of the grey. So if we wanted to even it up, we could finish just on the outside of that grey there. And then we've got this width, I think, probably. And take it to there. So we're going to make a rectangle of sorts. I'll move that pin a little bit because I got the line, so it was a bit squint there. We've got a choice. We can either make it a full rectangle or we can do some sort of interesting shape with it. And I think I'm going to mark out an interesting shape. So using a darning wool, now this is the one I've used, which I find better. I've done a lot of experimenting with this garment and I think this one's going to be the best. I've marked out a sort of rhomboid, perhaps that's not the right mathematical term, someone will tell me, and kite, kite shape, and it won't be perfectly even, but what we've done now of course is we've doubled up our tacking. Concentrating. I've doubled up the tacking at the same time, so now that jersey is well and truly in place, which is good. So there we are, right through to the end. Every mend is different, so you have to work out what technique you're going to use. I like chain stitch on knitwear because it's the same sort of elastic, slightly stretchy stitch, and it mirrors the knitting. But I can't do it vertically here because it doesn't suit the shape. So I'm going to go across the way and make a straight line, hopefully, and then I'll work in one direction from that straight line and the other. And it should enable me to finish off my chain stitch, keeping roughly the shape that we've marked out. So chain stitch, you secure your thread, move forward one stitch, like that, and then take the thread you're using behind the needle. I'll just do 2 more. There you can see I'm going slightly at a different angle. I have to try and recover a bit. You want the little stitches to be more or less even, and when you get to the end of the row, which I'm going to do now, I put my thread behind the needle there, pull it tight, and then secure it by going once round that loop again. There we are. Now I'm going to take my needle up to the next line I'm going to do. And just to recap, we're using a mending wool. I think I called it darning thread earlier. It is because that's what people expect you to do with it. It comes in a variety of colours. They're not exciting colours, so if you had access to better colour wools and you found one you like, that's fine. I'm using it singly. But the thing is, I don't really want to run my thread from one end to the other to have the chain going in the same direction all the time. So I'm now going to work backwards, back the way, back and forth, and it will create a texture. So I make my loop and do my stitch. Remember, I'm having to pat it out all the time because I need to keep this flat. So now this little bit here that I've been stitching back and forth has become quite firm, which means I can remove the cardboard support and I can start to work just in an ordinary stitching way. So I'm right-handed, that means my right hand does the stitching and my left hand is helping. And that means I can take it and watch telly or do anything with it like that. I'll show you when I've nearly completed now. Here we have the finished patch. I worked from the centre outwards, chain stitch up and down, from the centre to the other side, and I steamed it with the iron. I didn't press it, I steamed it and then left it to dry, so you can see it's nice and flat. But I don't like this rough edge around here, so we're going to put a stem stitch. Now a stem stitch is like the reverse of a back stitch. I shall keep the thread out of the way, one stitch forward and back, stitch forward and back. And what it does is it wraps your thread quite nicely around. As long as the stitches are even, you get this lovely sort of, I think it's more like a cord. So there we are, can you see round the edges? It's really very neat. Say these are the stitch holes. I'm going to take the thread one stitch ahead, bring it up one behind, one stitch ahead, bring it up one behind. And so long as you keep all of these threads on the same side, the cord will wrap itself. It is simple. Here it is finished and it's steamed. It's not perfectly even, but it looks perfectly nice, I think. It was quite a big hole, and that's saved this jumper for a long time. There was a hole in the other arm too. So this we did something different with. I did something different with. So this time I took the chain stitch up the way, it was a much smaller hole, up the way, trying to follow the line of the knitting. Up the way and then ran the thread back down the back. Up again, down, up, down. Now you can see it's quite difficult to keep a really beautiful even square because you're working with fabric that moves. And then I did the stem stitch around the edge, which looks quite cordy like, and it's neatened it up. Both are attractive, both show different methods.